Hello, everybody. It's Inonge Kabele. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. I, of course, have so much to say. Um, Gosh, where do I even start? Like, I was so excited about doing this video, and then I like turn it on, and I was like, oh. um, there's Okay, I'll just share what's been on my mind. I might ramble and go here and there, but I'm sure like once I warm up a little bit, it'll just flow a little bit better. But I have a YouTube channel that I started like about 2.5 years ago. And it was just under my name, Inonge Kabele. But a couple of days ago, I changed the name to Iconoclast Inonge. That's my YouTube channel. And I'm calling it that because where do I even begin? You can count on me to ask questions about our modern day society's golden calves, like secular society's golden calves and the idols that we worship. I see a lot of idol worshiping going on, and um, there are a variety of reasons why I think I perceive life the way that I do. But what I do see is we've been indoctrinated. I mean, I'll just say at least half of the world. We've been indoctrinated into false doctrines. And the current false doctrine, I mean, this has been building up steadily over decades, but I feel like with this coronavirus lockdown, we're in probably the end of a massive worldwide initiation. And I think that most of us are totally unaware of what's going on now. Why do I say things are false idols? Because if we make decisions, if we perceive situations and people from a purely materialistic standpoint, um, then that to me is worshiping a false idol. It's idol ideology, right? And false ideas. So I've made a video about it and I've written about it. I personally call this core, like C.O.R.E, the core. Like we've been initiated into the core, which is the cult of racism everywhere. Um, Not everybody believed in this, but it's just with this massive initiation that we're in, everybody is kind of being forced to comply and live by it. So core, what is it? It's the doctrine that systemic racism is everywhere, and basically that our reason for being born into this world is to combat it, to defeat it. But if we defeat it, it won't last long because it's everywhere. It's like the air that we breathe. It's like a law. It's without question, this is how it is. And how do I put it? Um, so the conversation, that we would have inherited from our parents or our grandparents, or I know at least my parents were raised, even me, when I was young, we were taught ethics, values, principles. We were taught code of conduct, um, reciprocity, character development, and that that set of conversations just seems to have entirely disappeared from public life. It's not in public schools anymore. It's not in university. Well, it depends on the university, but at least in Ivy League universities, or even if these subjects are taught, they're taught from a deconstructionist standpoint. So a moral relativism. So we're going to talk about these concepts, and we're going to just tear them apart and find the flaws and poke the holes, because like, we're nothing. Um, and religious, spiritual thought is to be looked down upon. It's regressive, because right now we're modern people, we're progressive, um, we are moving forward, we're improving upon life, we're gods, right? We have this technology now, where we are gods. And there is no God, but we are gods. So we can do things with genetics and splicing and manipulating genes, and um, we can control fertility on a level that's just used to be unheard of. And um, they're just there's this new thought. Well, it's not that new, but now it's like it's new in the sense that we're all being forced to bow, to this idol. Um, how do I explain it? So so the media is saying that Biden won the election, and um, it it amused me because the things that I had been saying several months ago were actually coming true. And this is one of those situations where I'm like, yep, once again, I was absolutely right. And on the one hand, I am tempted to gloat about it. But then on the other end, I'm very sad that I wound up being correct. And it breaks my heart. So I've watched videos of, after the media announced Biden's win, which is not a true win, because there's been an awful lot of corruption and stuff like that. Um, there were tens of thousands of people in the streets celebrating. And so these are people who voted for Biden. They their leadership insisted on mail-in ballots because they were so concerned about the lives of other people. And they are good people who wear masks all the time and social distance. And they look down upon those, backwards, uneducated, racist, xenophobic, sexist, you name it, whatnots on the right, these like far right white supremacists. But, the Democrats are progressive and modern and intellectual and highly educated and care and believe in science. And so that is why we are not going to um, jeopardize the lives of other people by voting at the polls. It's very important, you see. And I had been saying, just you watch. If Biden wins, they're going to be out there, and oh boy, were they ever, packed like sardines outside. And I saw some more footage today in Hollywood. They had a parade, or having a parade, and some people weren't even wearing masks at all. Um, I have to say, if you're a Democrat still, I mean, I'm sure right now you're feeling like really, really good. But I really, really strongly suggest that you look at this whole narrative from beginning to end and just get out of your belief system and just look. The corruption is obvious. It's it's a Trojan horse. It's like, when animals pretend they play dead. Um, and it's shameful. I think the people who went out to celebrate are not seeing it because they're in their own world and they're not seeing really what they've participated in. And I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to observe. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not saying that anybody is wrong. I'm not saying anybody is bad. I'm not saying anybody is evil. I'm not saying anybody, I'm not using that rhetoric towards Democrats that they use towards Republicans because that would just be keeping the insanity and the hatred going. But, okay, I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about why I am able to see what I see. And I call it seeing in the spirit. And I've got this ability to see energy, or like I had to develop this ability pretty early in my life because I was growing up in Lesotho and I was not allowed to speak Sesotho. And um, so I fine tune this ability to read people, like read their body language and read their energy, because like that's the only way I could understand what was going on. Like, can you imagine like being with your friends and they might begin by speaking English, but then they get more and more comfortable and then they speak more. And then it's like Sesotho English. And then it's like they're speaking Sesotho. And I just developed a sensitivity to facial expression and body language and looking at dynamics and how people related to each other. So I'll just say I became, I think, a lot more intuitive than most people, just in the same way that somebody who is blind becomes their sense of, um, their sense of space and their hearing becomes more acute because they can't see. So other perceptions become more acute. Um, that's part of it. Another thing that happened with me was it was like 8 to 9 years old, we were in the States. And then I came back at 12. And um, I experienced a tremendous amount of hatred and bigotry because I was from Africa at the time. I had a very strong accent. I was not acculturated to American life. And I stuck out like a sore thumb. And people came at me with the viciousness that the media has gone after Trump from the moment he announced his candidacy. That experience that I had of being, an outsider here in the United States and sometimes being ganged up on by like 6 to 8 guys, um, calling me all sorts of filthy names because I was from Africa and they had grown up on these really, really racist cartoons. And being on the receiving end of mockery and, like being smacked in the back of my head and pushed around or having my work destroyed. And I remember I did this one really, really beautiful piece of art, and this guy in my art class just came by with red paint and poured it over. Like experiencing that stuff made me very sensitive to being a person on the receiving end of hatred just because of what I look like or just because of what these people with authority says about me, like about people like me. So that's two things. So number one, growing up in Lesotho, not speaking Sesotho. Number two, being here in the United States and being at the receiving end of hatred, bigotry, and violence. And I mean, I hate to say it, it was like if a white person was, racist towards me, a black person was xenophobic times 10 of the white person's racism. And that is internalized self-loathing. So I understand it now. Another reason why I have I perceive things the way that I do is because my brother founded a very successful private school here in Austin, Texas, and his school bought out another school, and the board of that school went out after him with a viciousness, and he lost everything. And it wasn't enough for them to do that and um, make up a bunch of really ugly rumors and slander and libel, but um, they also used the media against him. And um, for a while there, you know, all family members, I mean, people who were too cowardly to talk to him to his face, came after us. So that helped me understand how, like, when you're a public figure, a person can, if they want to and if they're motivated to, can be relentless in trying to destroy your life and everything that you built. And my brother, I mean, he just walked away from it all, and he was like, he just walked away from it all, and he started again. But um, I mean, over time, people understood. It took time. It took years for people to get it, what really happened. And some people apologized to him, and other people were kind of sheepish, and they acted like nothing had really happened. But I remember it all. So um, that's another reason why I don't buy into this media lies and all of that. I mean, we've been indoctrinated in society to believe that if somebody official with an official title and it's comes through an official publication, then it's true. Not necessarily. People have their political agendas or their, financial agendas or whatever, reputation agendas. So that's the third thing. Um, the fourth thing is I have friends, and they've been friends of mine for many, many years, who are Republicans. And almost every one of them, to the T, owns a business. So they're business owners and they're entrepreneurs. And I, they've been loyal, fast friends to me unwaveringly. They're the sweetest, kindest people. They're very family oriented, very, very generous. Give to their communities generously, do a lot of community service, do a lot of, philanthropical work, everything. And it hurts me. It's very painful for me to watch people I know assume that they are evil people just because of their political party, just because the media says that Republicans are evil, bad, racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, da 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 da. It's not true. Not at all. Um, I live in Central Texas. I've been in small towns. I've been on ranches. I've been in medium-sized towns, big towns. Everywhere I go, people are lovely. People who are, like what the media says is a stereotype of, um, white conservative people have been nothing but kind, generous, welcoming, curious people. There's a difference. I mean, I can't even begin to explain. And then in Texas, you've got people from all over the world, and everybody just wants to get along, very, very kind. I don't experience racism. Um, so I've known people, and this is like multi-generations of people who are white Republicans who are my friends, and I've never had an issue with them around color. They've never made me feel uncomfortable or weird or anything like that. That's the fourth thing. I'm trying to remember like how many things, right? So around 7 years ago is when I basically walked away from the Democratic Party. I was born into a Democratic Party. I just took it for granted for decades. I'd watch the news. I'd only watch NPR. I mean, I'd only listen to NPR, and I'd watch, PBS and it's like mostly CNN. And they would always describe Republicans as very backward, uneducated people who didn't want to change, who wanted to take people's rights away, who were authoritarian, greedy, big business people who um, had no, like, they lacked empathy. And like for many, many years, I didn't even question it. It's like, the sky is blue, the grass is green, Republicans are racist white supremacists. And, it just never occurred to me to question any of that until I came back to Texas and I made friends with people. And it was like over time, I put two and two together and I figured that they were Republicans, and they could have the entire time they could have said demeaning and derogatory things about Democrats, and they never did once. But many of my Democrat friends will take every opportunity to demean Republican people, and I just started thinking, wait, that's what is going on. um, I There's so many other things that happen, but I'll say that I've done a lot of research over these past 7 years. Um, I've read and listened to Thomas Sowell, listened to Larry Elder. Um, there's some new, like, younger Black conservatives coming up who are talking a lot. I've watched some of Dinesh D'Souza's movies. I highly recommend Larry Elder's Uncle Tom. Excellent, excellent movie. But also another thing is, like, I've been exposed to so much Black history and a lot of books, and man, I'm talking too slowly right now. All I can say, I just want to wrap it up really quickly. This main point that I'm making. The main point that I'm making is, if you believe Republicans and Trump people and Trump are racists, then that's a belief that you've chosen to have. You want to believe that, or maybe you've never had the occasion or never had a conversation with anybody who challenged your belief. But, you know, like, first of all, I can't imagine how it is to go about life in this day and age. Because, like I said, I left the Democratic Party 7 years ago. I can't imagine how it's like in this day and age to be a Democrat, really believe the media narrative, and function, to be able to, like, walk out the door, go out in public, and actually function in public life when you don't even know who is really a Democrat and who is a Republican, but you really believe that Republicans are evil people and hateful people and want to take your rights away and ruin your life. I think that if I were to live with those thoughts going on, I don't know if I'd be able to function properly. So that's one thing I want to say. Another thing is, if you're a Democrat, just take a look at the footage and think about, like, think about what you signed up to. Think about what is it, like, the strategy or the playbook that you signed on to, and just look at it. Maybe you really sincerely believe that coronavirus was that deadly and you followed all of the orders, and you didn't question how the media depicted Trump or his followers, or even people who questioned this whole lockdown. But just take a look at the footage since yesterday of tens of thousands of people celebrating, and then listen to your media and see if they're using the same language towards the Democrats that they've been using towards the Republicans. Because when the Republicans did rallies and they went to Trump rallies, the media was excoriating them and for not social distancing and having these events being super spreaders. But now that the Democrats are doing that, and, multiply that many times over, the media is not talking about the Democrats being super spreaders of coronavirus, and look at how immature, selfish, stupid, and backwards these people are. When you live your life by ideology, when you live your life by material, the material hierarchy, then, like, I'll just speak for myself. If I live my life by an ideology that is purely materialistic, by an ideology that has, a totem pole of where people stack in terms of their importance or their capabilities, or if I live by materialistic ideology, like maybe a Marxist or socialist ideology that says basically the meaning or the reason for life is dominating or avoiding domination, and everything is about people in power trying to dominate those under them, and then these trying to get their power back and then evenly distribute the wealth. And maybe this year the black woman is the focus, but then next year it might be the Hispanic woman, and all of that, a very materialistic ideology. Then if I live by that ideology, um, I know that I'm capable of committing atrocities, because if I believe that and I don't question it, and then my authorities say, okay, go out and kill, I am prone to just going out and killing because I believe I'm right. I believe I'm one of the good ones. I believe that I'm fighting evil. I believe that I'm making the world a better place. Whatever they tell me to believe, I'll believe it. As opposed to if I live my life by principle, then I am not so prone to committing some sort of atrocity. Now, some people could say, and I think rightly so, some people could say, all of those Democrats for almost the past year, the mayors, representatives, governors, congresspeople, senators, who went along with this coronavirus lockdown narrative, this pandemic narrative, this pandemic with a 99.9 something percent survival rate. Those people who put in place those mandates, who enforce those mandates, who push the narrative, who, the media people, the journalists, the writers, the news anchors, who push this narrative about the coronavirus lockdown, the narrative that in fact is killing millions of people in the world of starvation, the narrative that in fact has increased the suicide rate by 600%, has, because it's like we speak things into existence. So, in the beginning was the word, right? So we put our word to something, we speak a vision, we speak a belief, and then we act and we do things. All of those Democrats that, would say to me, you're a selfish person for questioning, you conspiracy theorist, you stupid person, you don't believe in science. And then I would say, but there are all these hospitals that are ghost towns, and people who need surgery are dying because of these coronavirus lockdowns. They're not getting surgery. And then the Democrat says to me, you sociopath, right? You don't care. Like, it's like it's in the realm of magical thinking, right? That it's incredible to me that these mom and pop stores, shops, businesses were forced to shut down, but we can still go to these big box stores, right? For me to talk about that, it's like taboo. Oh no, no, no. And that's what I'm saying about false idols. when we look at things from ideological, materialistic standpoint, we open ourselves up to deception. We open ourselves up to committing atrocities. I think that these leaders in government who went who really pushed this coronavirus agenda, especially when it was obvious that it was not a pandemic, they should be tried for crimes against humanity. They should. Anyhow, um, speaking of idol worship, speaking of, I'll give you another example. Um, like Kamala Harris, for instance, there's this piece of artwork. Um, she's walking, and then her shadow is, and please forgive me, I really should have done my research, but it just popped in my head. That little girl who integrated schools, and she had to have like the National Guard and all of that, and just the things. But anyway, people are celebrating Kamala Harris, and either they didn't know or they forgot about her history in Los Angeles as a district attorney, her history of incarcerating Black men at, I think, 19 times the national average for drug possession, her history of jailing the parents of kids who were truant from school, and um, most of these parents were minority parents. Um, we idol worship Kamala Harris because she's a first, and it's exciting. She'll be the first, even though I know it's illegitimate, but I'm just saying from their standpoint, she'll be the first Black woman vice president, the first Indian woman vice president, and we're expected to, and many of us are, but we're expected for that to be enough. We're expected to forget her destructive leadership. Where, I mean, there was a man who was on death row and he appealed, and she refused to look at it, and he was killed even though he was innocent. This is Kamala Harris. But our society has indoctrinated us into being materialists, pure materialists. And the conversation for principles, values, morals doesn't exist anymore. And so we have this like new hierarchy of value. We have a new definition of sin or wrongdoing. We have a new definition of evil, and everything is inverted. Now for Black people, minority people, women, it feels good. It it feels affirming. It feels vindicating. We're feeling this power. We're feeling like we have taken white supremacy down a notch. Yeah, we did it, right? But we're not looking at the long-term consequences of our decisions. We're not looking at the long-term consequences of the choices that we're making. We're not looking at the long-term consequences of the policies that Biden and Harris are promising. Like, for instance, they are promising to roll out a social crediting system across the United States that basically models itself after China. Well, what does that mean? Well, social crediting system, it's like having a credit score, financial credit score, but this time it's social. So like, I'll give you an example. China, you jaywalk. In China, I believe there are 5 cameras per citizen. You jaywalk, facial recognition technology catches you. They recognize you by your irises. And then immediately your score goes down. Now, if your score goes down enough, then you can't use the train. You can't travel outside of your city or district or whatever it's called. You won't be able to rent a car. You won't be able to, like buy a home or rent an apartment. or even get a job, you know. So this is what Biden and Harris are promising to roll out. Um, and but you know the racial gender issues are a red herring because the media whips us into this like emotional frenzy, and then everybody around us like us who thinks like us, it's just like this, you know. And then we don't perceive reality as it is. We perceive reality as they want us to perceive it. And so, even in this day and age where the internet is free, you can find out for yourself, you can experience for yourself if Trump and his supporters, you can learn for yourself if they're really racists. Hold on a second. Um, it's free. This is a free will world. I mean, you can find out, but you know, people don't want to find out. They don't want. Maybe they don't want to find out they've been wrong all along. Maybe it's the fear of realizing they've been duped, realizing they've been conned, realizing they've been used, or maybe like, oh my gosh, if I really come to understand that the media has been lying to me all my life and has taught me to hate a whole population of people all my life, what does that make me? And then how do I go out into the world and function after I have been spewing hate all this time? There's a saying that it's easier to, oh my gosh, I can't remember. It's got something to do with it's easier to fool a person than to convince them that they had been duped or something like that. Um, I often wonder, like, if I hadn't left the Democratic Party 7 years ago, if I hadn't had this lucky combination of, you know, my earlier childhood experiences with like not having language, with my Republican friends I've had for decades, with um, you know, if I hadn't had uh, this combination of experiences, you know, there for the grace of God go I probably would have the perception that most Democrats I see have. And I feel really, really lucky that I just had this wonderful combination, the synchronicity of events that enabled me to, you know, and it was a hard road. It was very, especially with what my brother went through with his school. It's a very hard road, but you know, I wonder, I'm like, gosh, I might actually have these thoughts and feelings. I would feel horrible. And then even with the Biden win, maybe for a day I would feel awesome, but then maybe the next day I would feel kind of hungover because still there are Republicans running around. There's still a bunch of Republicans alive. You know what I mean? So anyway, I just anybody can anybody can learn the truth and just do research and meet people and talk to them and actually listen to a real Republican or a real conservative person or even a libertarian and learn from them. You know, I really believe that in a natural system, um, there will basically, you know, if the system is allowed to be more free, there will basically be two main parties that are seem to be diametrically opposed if you come from a negative place, but from a positive place, they're actually complements. They complement each other, and it would be awesome if we could get to that point. Um, and I've spoken and written about it before. As for white supremacy, the belief in white supremacy, I think that is a cult. Um, it's it's more in the idea. It's more in the realm of ideas. It's not such a physical thing. Maybe in other parts of the world it is, but In the United States, we no longer have these segregation laws, you know. Um, I highly recommend watching Larry Elder, Dinesh D'Souza, watching and reading um, Thomas Sowell, just doing your research. If not, and I'm not saying that you'll do your research and you'll leave the Democratic Party. What I'm saying is the benefit for you is that the pain, the angst, the fear, the paranoia, the anger, the disgust, the rage, the those negative feelings, you won't have them anymore. They'll be gone, and then you will be free. You know, you will be free. It'll benefit you. It's just nothing but a benefit to you. You know. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that, like core cult of racism and racism everywhere. Um, it's a red herring. It's a distraction. It's a divide and conquer tool. I see that ideology and that ideology being um, like forced on us and being, what's the word? Oh, invested in by these tech companies and Fortune 500 companies and these big educational institutions will ultimately destroy us. Um, and that's everybody. It'll destroy everybody. Um, and it's 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 interesting if you feel that your group of people that you're with are the good ones, the smart ones, the progressive ones, the modern ones, da, 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 then it's almost impossible to see what's being done in your name. Um, yeah, what's being done in your name. A few months ago, I wrote, because there were all these Black Lives Matter protests, and I was like, I didn't give these people permission to do this in my name, you know. The cultural Marxism and the critical race theory and the dismantling of white supremacy and all of that theory, and which is also now practice, um, doesn't even set a bar for Black people. There is this implicit, like if you know how to read it, there's this implicit assumption that Black people are in need of rescuing because Black people do not have the capacity for self-control, delayed gratification, um, studiousness, intellect that white people have. And so white people will always be up here, and we have to fight, you know, systemic racism um, because white people have that much power over us. And we need all to wake up to the fact that our power is here. This is where our power is. This is where this is where our potential is. This is where our dreams are, and um, love is. And I think that approaching life from a purely physical standpoint and evaluating people on physical characteristics they have absolutely no control over, about evaluating people on the legacy that they inherited for things their ancestors did, or evaluating people and assuming that they don't have the maybe um, capacity for compassion or empathy that you do. All of this stuff is very physical, will only ultimately lead to disaster, catastrophe, heartache, pain, and then start the cycle up all over again. So yeah, all my friends on the left, I'm just, what I'm saying is for you. Um, if there's anything that rings true for you, or maybe if what I'm saying is making you feel a little bit uncomfortable, um, it's up to you. You have the choice whether you want to investigate your beliefs or not. But like I said before, if by now you really, really believe in that racism and that it's that bad and responsible for everything, that Trump and his followers are racist and Republicans are racist, then you want to have that belief. Now it's your choice. You want to have that belief. And I'm just asking you to ask yourself, why do I want this belief? How is it benefiting me? Or how do I think it's benefiting? What am I unwilling to let go of? Um, Reading comments is painful for me, like the negative comments. Um, it's painful for me because it's painful for me to see people in pain. You know, it's unnecessary. And I've said before, life is hard. Life is hard enough. We get hungry, thirsty, tired. You know, we have insomnia. Uh, Sometimes we're bored. We have no motivation. We get depressed. We have to work. We have to do work we don't like. We have to do things. We don't have time to do things we do like. We don't get to see our friends. We don't, it's like, gee, it's hard enough already. And then to willfully accept beliefs from a higher authority without question, people who don't know you, don't care about you, and they're telling you how to feel and how to relate to the world and how to relate to specific people. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But I feel like, but for the grace of God go I, because like I said, I've had this whole world of experience that's informed me. And it's very easy for me to see what's going on. And, I feel like I'm what do you call it? Well, what do I call it? I'm an AI emancipator, abolitionist, AI abolitionist. Um, these algorithms tailor make information to suit each and every one of us. These algorithms curate content for every one of us. The content makes us feel good about ourselves. The content, if we hate a certain group of people, um, reinforces that hatred or that fear. And that is what is called artificial intelligence taking over human consciousness. The artificial intelligence takes over what we're actually conscious of or what we're aware of. And we've been controlled for a very long time. These tech companies, especially with social media, they what do you call it? They censor us, and then there are all these words and phrases and sayings that induce feelings of shame as well. Stuff like conspiracy theorists and da 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 da. And then we feel shame, and then we are ruled by that shame, and then our friends, keep us in place using those shaming tactics. And this is something just to be consciously aware of, and just consciously aware of. That's all I can say. But yeah, it was amusing to me. It made me sad, but it also simultaneously, it amused me to see the Biden-Harris, or shall I say Harris-Biden revelers celebrating in the streets. And what happened to Corona? Where's the crown? Anyhow, that's what's been on my mind. I'm going to learn how to speak a little bit faster. Like, I've watched a few of my videos over and I'm like, oh, I talk too slowly. So I'm going to practice speaking faster. It's almost 50 minutes now. I'm signing off on this one. Maybe later I'll do like some other shorter ones just to share information. But yeah, we're living in interesting times, and all I can say is Um, you know, for all of us who think that we are the good ones, this is a time to examine what is the spirit that's dwelling within us. You know, is that spirit helping us to see people as unique human beings who just have differences, different perspectives and opinions, or is that spirit that we're nurturing within ourselves, having us see other people as enemies, less than us, or whatever? All right. Bye bye for now.